carry the weight with stories that matter. Don't let them wait. Every story matters, from bases to war zones, from tearful reunions to cold nights alone. Spouses and veterans, hearts that won't quit, telling the truth about all of it.
Hello and welcome back, everyone. It's just another day in the life as a military wife, and I am super excited to share two things with you today. First is, have you ever wondered how you're going to pay for higher education? Oftentimes, I hear people talk about how college and certificate programs should be free. And you know what? There is a way to get your education paid for completely free or with little to no out of pocket cash required. And it's no gimmick, no trick, no sales thing. All you have to do is join the U.S. military. And we are going to tell you how you can translate your military service into a higher education or certificate. And not only that, but possibly be able to do that for your spouse or your children as well. And then when I say we, I'm actually meaning I've got someone with me today. My husband's joining us today. He goes by Sergeant Dad, and he will be making sure that I get you guys all of the best information possible. He's been through this with friends and soldiers, service members he has worked with, and knows quite a few success stories. So we are going to share all of that with you today. As always, I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife. Okay, so as I hinted at before, I have a special guest with me today, and it is my husband, who goes by Sergeant Dad. It's kind of an inside joke that he picked up with one of his units. Kind of because he loves to give advice on financial stuff. And so that's part of the reason why he's here. So we're talking about how to get your schooling and education covered, and how people want, free education or educational assistance or student loan forgiveness. Well, guess what? The military has had programs like that for years, and we're going to be digging into that today. So he's done a lot of research on this, and we're just going to talk back and forth because I figured it would be a little bit more interesting if I was not some floating head giving you a lecture on something I've researched but never really used. And so, okay, there are two different types of GI Bills. There's the Montgomery and the post 9/11. And I'm going to let Sergeant Dad give the quick Reader's Digest what the difference is.
All right. So the two bills. The first, the Montgomery GI Bill, a little bit of history with it. It was passed originally, an updated version in 1984, and then put into effect in 1985. There are some caveats, a lot of stuff to it. But basically, when you join the military for the first year on active duty, you'll pay about $100 every month towards your GI Bill benefits. If you do that and you complete that, you are then eligible to use the full GI Bill after 3 years of full-time service. And it's pretty nice. Honestly, the benefit is really nice. It gives you 36 months or 3 years of just monetary benefit towards the GI, towards your education. So it's kind of set. The actual amounts for the Montgomery GI Bill are set, but we'll get into that. The post 9/11 was passed in 2009, and it's a big update, and there are some major differences between it and the old one. And the biggest difference is they don't pay you directly. Instead, they pay the school directly, and the tuition amount is capped, but it's not as severely restricted in some ways as the Montgomery. But either way, they're both phenomenal options for educational benefits for service members. They're incredible opportunity to take advantage of. And it doesn't just apply to active duty, it also applies to guard and reservists.
Yeah, but another factor with the difference is with the Montgomery GI Bill, you cannot transfer that to dependents, can you? It's only the 9/11.
Yes, the post 9/11 is the only one you can transfer to dependents. And there are some challenges with that. Mostly, you have to be, when you decide to actually transfer that benefit, you have to then serve an additional 4 years active duty time before you can actually transfer that benefit fully to whatever dependent you want, spouse, kids, what have you.
Yeah, and the military is not really great about explaining that ahead of time. So if you we figure out pretty early on that you're going to be transferring your GI Bill benefits to a spouse or a child, then you should switch over from the Montgomery to the post 9/11 right away and allocate that to them so that you have it in enough time for them to actually claim it before you get out, because there's so many times I've heard of people who didn't realize about that 4-year clause, and they're 2 years from getting out, and they wanna switch it to one of their kids, and they realize they can't anymore because of that. So, it's one of those things to be aware of, and they just don't give you enough heads up on. The other thing is, you have to at least transfer the amounts. They don't have to have their entire bill. You could actually give, like, part of it to one kid, part of it to another kid, and part of it to your spouse, but you have to have the amounts solidified before you get out, and you can change that after the fact, but you need to at least allocate 1 month of benefits to each beneficiary, 4 years before, so.
Yeah, there is a lot to that. And honestly, making all those calculations and all that stuff, it's best to do a lot of deep research yourself, and you'll find out lots more. Plus, the educational assistance counselors that the military has through the Soldier for Life program are awesome at helping you kind of navigate this whole challenge, as well as many of the colleges and universities have dedicated military support departments that their whole job is to help people through applying through this. Also, you can go to the VA, who also have educational counselors that do the same thing. They'll guide you through how to use it, what to do. You can go on to va.gov to actually apply for these benefits.
The other thing is, once you switch from a Montgomery GI Bill to a post 9/11, you can't switch back, correct?
That is correct. You typically the advice is to start with the Montgomery GI Bill, because once you switch to the post 9/11, it's a one-way street. That's it. You're done. But if you stick with the Montgomery for as long as you feel desire to, and you aren't looking at transferring your educational benefits to a spouse or dependent, then you can maintain that Montgomery GI Bill for basically as long as you want while you're in service, and then it's good for another 10 years post service. That is one also a big difference. The post 9/11 GI Bill changes it from only 10 years post service to lifetime eligibility, but you have to switch over before you hit 10 years post service.
Yeah, and so people might be thinking, okay, well, if you get the more flexibility with the post 9/11, why would anyone want the Montgomery GI? And it really just depends on what your educational goals are. Are you going to be sharing this with a family member? Are you not? And different things. So, for example, with the post 9/11, you can also get BAH um, as well, but then you usually have to be going in person, right? That's correct?
So you can do online schooling through either method, through either bill, I should say. For the Montgomery GI Bill, they don't care whether you're doing it online or in person. It's literally just a flat paid rate for everyone. If you are using the post 9/11, however, which includes a BAH reimbursement, if you are doing it online, they cut it in half. Period. There is a way around that. It's basically meaning just you have to have one class in person wherever you are. But unless you're doing that, you're only going to get half the BAH amount you're allotted for your location.
Yeah, so depending on what you're wanting, you might be able to get better benefits from the Montgomery than the 9/11. And that's what you were looking up, right, Sergeant Dad? You had been actually analyzing it for if you were doing out of state and what the local BAH is. You might get more money if you yeah, different ways. Break it down because you were explaining it to me, and I'm not sure I'm explaining it well.
Okay, so basically it went like this. When I was doing my research on this whole thing, it was a case where I wanted to know better of which one would be better for me, because I was at the point where I was going to use my GI Bill benefits, and I was looking at, okay, do I want to use this? Do I want to use that? Everyone I was talking to was recommending I go post 9/11, but when I actually did my own reading and then I checked into what I was doing, I was doing fully online school. And because of that, it turned out in my case to be better to stick with the Montgomery GI Bill because of the challenges of having a online versus in-person schooling and all of that, and then the difference also financially of that. Now, if I was going to a very expensive online school, or maybe I was going to an in-person but very expensive school, and I wanted to use my GI Bill benefits. In many of those cases, the post 9/11 is absolutely the better answer. But again, this is one of those cases where you can quickly do some reading. You can look online. VA.gov actually has a benefits calculator. You can go on, look it up, and you can actually plug in the details about your school, about the options, what you're going to do for school and all of that, as well as how many credits you're planning to take. And it will actually spit out a recommendation basically for which one is going to be better for you.
Yeah, and the other thing that so there's just so many factors to this, and maybe you don't know what you're wanting to do with education, and so you don't know where to go or what to start. The more options you have, it might be better. Locking yourself into one thing might not be the best. And so staying with that flexibility of sticking with Montgomery until you know what you want to have, it might be the best option. But it's basically once you know what you want, you'll be able to determine which one is going to give you the best results. I know quite a few people who have shared it with dependents, and so 9/11 was the way they needed to go straight up because they wanted to be able to share those benefits. But in the case like this, there are times where the Montgomery is going to give you the better return on your investment. Okay, so we're going to have a quick point of clarification because we realized going back to our notes that we might have misspoke or been not so clear on a few things. First things first, if you are wanting to make your changes while you are still in your military service, between Montgomery and 9/11 and allocate it to a dependent and stuff like that, you need to do that in the military. You don't go to the VA for that.
Mhm.
It's after you get out of the military that VA is who helps you with it. So that's the difference. While you are in the military service, you need to inform. Now, who is it in the military that you let know if you want to switch?
You go to the educational office and they'll help you out. Your unit S1 or your administrative unit, the people that take care of all your admin functions, depending on the branch, they will they'll actually walk you through where to go as well. But every base has an educational center, and you can just walk in there and talk straight to them, and they will tell you exactly what to do and who to talk to get it fixed.
Yeah, so that's something you need to take care of ahead of time with when you're in the military through those military branches. Once you're out of the military, then it's the VA that you work with. And then there's another thing, it's a discrepancy we found. So you point out that one.
Okay, so the discrepancy we actually noticed is this: depending on which resource you look into, and there's a bit of this, it can be minimum. You have minimum of 4-year additional obligation if you want to transfer it to dependents, but it could be as much as 6 years additional obligation. It just depends on a few factors. Nothing really big on that. You'll have to do some digging. That might apply in your case. It might not. The number of people that actually transfer their benefits, from what I've read, is not huge, but there are some out there. So if you are one of those people, definitely do your research and talk to an educational counselor to work through those details.
And I've heard, but you want to double check again with everything because I feel like things change and you get different answers depending on who you talk to some days. Um, that they sometimes won't let you transfer those benefits to dependents until after you've served like 10 years. So that's something to take into consideration too. So if you're not going to be in very long, you may not even have the option of transferring it. And so sticking with the Montgomery might be a better option overall.
It just depends on the tuition amounts as well, because it really just depends, because the more expensive schools, the post 9/11 is really going to get you much more money for it. But the Montgomery GI Bill, for any schools that are less expensive, and there's a lot of awesome schools out there that aren't that expensive, they are actually, in a lot of cases, going to be better for the Montgomery GI Bill. But again, mileage may vary. Need to check on that. The other thing I wanted to mention, because I double checked on this, is if you separated from the military before January 1st of 2013, I'm sorry, there is a 15-year benefit window that you can use your post 9/11 benefits. After that year, if you separated after that, so say you separated in 2015 or 2020, then your benefits are forever if you elected for the post 9/11.
Yeah. So it's just making sure you know where you fall into category wise. But anybody who is that, their benefits would have already expired at this point or close to, right?
They'd be very close to expiring. They would have at most, what, about 3 years left? 2 to 3 years.
So if you fall into that category, you know anyone who would fall into that category who got out before, when was it again?
January 1st of 2013.
So anybody who left the military before January 1st of 2013, look into that now if you've not used your GI benefits because they may be close to expiring and it would be really a bummer if you missed out on all of that.
Mhm.
But here's another thing I wanted to talk to you about. So many people get caught up on these GI bills. There are other ways to get educational benefits from being in the military, and that's tuition assistance and other education programs. Now, as a family, we have used a lot of these programs to get my husband. Well, Sergeant Dad has used a lot of them. I haven't, but Sergeant Dad has used a lot of them for getting different certifications, tuition assistance, things like that. So he's going to talk about that for a second. But I also want to point out I have not used it, but there's also spouses benefits in these tuition things. I already had my bachelor's, so it won't cover masters, but it'll cover certificate programs and bachelor's. So that's something spouses need to be aware of. They can use without having to touch their husband's GI bills.
Yeah. If you are a dependent and your spouse is on active duty, you can absolutely go and get a bachelor's degree, and the military will pay for it. It's really, really awesome program for that. Um, the other thing is mentioned about the benefits. I did use tuition assistance. So I'm in the Army. I've used that kind of benefit that we have through the Army quite a bit, but all the services offer this to a greater or lesser degree. But basically, you can, while you're on active duty, you can utilize tuition assistance as well as with the reserves. They have the option where you can go to school part-time or full-time, whatever you can do time-wise, and you can go and do schooling for basically almost I can't remember the exact amounts, but it's quite a bit of schooling. It's basically a master's you can push to and complete while you're even on active duty, and they'll pay the vast bulk of that for you, so you don't have to worry. It's roughly right now, last I checked, is about $5,000 $4,000 per year. I'm pretty sure they're going to bump that soon if they haven't already, and then it's so many credit hours per year as well. But depending on your school, there are some caveats to even that stuff, but it's one of those cases where it's awesome to use it.
And sometimes schools will have extra financial benefits for active duty military as well. So look into the university you're going to and see what opportunities they have for military. And addition to that, there's always FAFSA. So between FAFSA and TA, Sergeant Dad has been able to get a lot of his education covered for at little to no cost to us. And that has been a huge blessing in our family for him to be able to continue his education, but it not be coming out of our family's limited budget.
Also, the huge, awesome benefit as well to that is, like she mentioned before, you can use this for certification programs of all types. There is a huge list. That one you can just go online. the military has a list through the Army. I know that. I know the other branches have a similar list. And it basically just means you can look at this list of what certifications are paid for through which college or trade school or whatever, and you can go and you can become like an electrician. You can get some that kind of stuff. You can get IT certifications of all types that will be paid for by TA or other benefits, and that one is available to both your spouse as well as the active duty or reserve service member themselves.
Yeah, and so Sergeant Dad actually started doing that years ago, and he started taking it, and it was great because some of these certifications he could actually take, and they counted as his duties um, assignment for that time period while he was in the class. And then taking the class is expensive, but then paying for the certification exam is super expensive too. And they cover all of that for you. So, and it's not just IT or technical stuff, there's lots of different certifications you can get through that military. So maybe you're in the military now and you're doing a job in the military that you don't particularly love, you can actually start looking at some of these different certifications and working on those before separating from the military so you have more job possibilities open up to you when you get out because you have the civilian credentials to show for you.
And honestly, especially for those who are like younger, if you are just going into the military or just about to start out, it's so awesome to get through your basic training, get through your AIT, get through all of that kind of stuff. And once you're at your first duty station, you're starting to get into the rhythm of how things work in the military. Go talk to your educational service counselors there at the educational center and start immediately. You can look at what you want to do. You can actually plan out schooling, and you can say that you only did a 4-year contract with the military and you're like, well, I'm done after 4 years. Well, if you start at the end of year one, you have 3 years to basically complete a bachelor's before you get out. And if you push hard on that, you can easily do that. It's not always going to be the case that you want to do that. Maybe you want to go for some certifications like we mentioned before. You can do so many awesome ones through there. And that way, when you walk out of the military, you already have plenty of you have your educational benefits, your GI Bill benefits untouched, and you can go with your TA that you've used. You can get out, go to school additionally for another couple of years to get a master's if you want, and then you can just also work a job on top of that if you'd like, or you can just take the time if you can financially do it and just do school, focus on that really hard for a year or so, knock out your schooling, and then go right back into the workforce and a much, much better pay grade, pay rate wherever you're going to be at. Or to be honest, if you decide to go back in the military because you're like, now I want to go back in and do like something like an officer or whatever, if you want to do that, there's so many options to do that. It's an amazing, amazing benefit.
Yeah, and then there are things like green to gold where you can go back to college and do that, finish up your degree and become an officer. So, I mean, when you're looking at higher education and credentialing and certifications, there are so many different ways to get your education in the military that there really is almost no excuse not to. And but oftentimes there's so many young service members who just don't understand the amazing wealth of opportunities and resources that they have. And that's kind of why he became Sergeant Dad, is because he got known for pulling some of these young service members aside and like giving them advice on how to handle their finances and how to up their level on education and gain all these different things and you do all of these different things and what their goals were. And so, yeah, he became Sergeant Dad, but honestly, I'm really proud of him for all the mentoring he's done for his service members that he supported.
The and I'm just going to tell a little bit of a story with this one. One of the kids that I knew when I was overseas worked with him a lot for about 4 months. And while he was while I was overseas with him, he decided that he was going to do some additional schooling, and he did. He did some online schooling while he was there. He continued that schooling after he got back from overseas and actually finished up a degree well before he got out. And then second story is, I'll tell you another one that's more recent. A buddy of mine that not very long ago, he was a PFC when I last saw him, and he was, he was a hard charging kid, but he and I had some great conversations. And this kid, I kid you not, he told me at the end of it, Sarn, I want to finish up. I want to get out and I want to be financially successful on the way out. And I'm like, well, you have so many opportunities financially, you have so many opportunities educationally. What do you want to do? And so he and I had some great conversations. He planned out an incredible education plan for himself. That guy just got out last about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, and he contacted me and said, "Yeah, hey, can you write me a letter of recommendation? I'm going to do this whole thing. I want to work with this company. I want to do this. I already finished my bachelor's in this. I got a bunch of certifications too. I'm all ready to go." And I couldn't be more proud of him. So the opportunities are there for service members and their families, and all they have to do is just dedicate the time.
Yeah. And it can be difficult. We've had issues where he was working on his degree program and he got deployed or sent overseas. And so he didn't always have access to a testing center or different things like that. But his universities and his professors have been rather flexible about his TDYs and different things like that. You just need to let them know ahead of time, hey, I'm active duty. This is what's going on. I'm going to be deployed. How do you want me to handle testing or whatnot while I'm deployed? Or I'm not sure what my reception is going to be during that time period. Can I put my degree on pause? They're very willing to accommodate those different needs because they understand that those things are really out of your control. And by and large, now there's not a lot of places you'll get sent for the military long term where you can't do schooling on some level. I mean, I'm still sure there's probably things, and it depends on what you do in the military, whether or not you're going to have access to that. So it's being aware, it's taking advantage, and realizing that there are so many opportunities. There's no excuse to join the military straight out of high school and then to leave 10, 15 years later and still not have some form of higher education because it is right there at your fingertips, just waiting for you to take it.
And I'm just going to say, I want to finish this for my part of this is we're taught in the military very early on. We're taught that we have to plan. Planning is one thing that service members know what to do with. If you aren't willing to plan, if you aren't going to do the plan, that's completely on the service member, but you have the skills. We go in, we're taught to plan, we're taught from day one how to plan, and we are taught to have multiple backup plans. So when you are looking at this opportunity and you're looking at possibly life after the military, maybe, and you don't, and there's so many kids I talked to, I said, I don't know I want to do. I have no idea. And the thing I always told them was pick a direction and start moving. It doesn't matter what you want to do. It doesn't even matter if you don't know what you want to do. Just pick a direction and start walking. And soon enough, you're going to find out whether you want to keep that going that way or whether you want to turn a different way.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Changing your major is completely acceptable. I changed my major 3 times. Sergeant Dad, you've changed your major like a million times. So, changing your major is fine. But you're starting off anyway with your general education credits. That'll help you figure out what you're interested in and what direction you really want to go. And the other great thing is in the military, there's tests online that'll show what your aptitudes and skills are, and you can use those to figure out where you want to go or what you want to accomplish. And just because you're doing a certain job in the military doesn't mean that's the degree you need to get. Because Sergeant Dad has done aviation and he's now doing IT. So you can switch, even though your MOS or your job is one thing, you can get a degree in something else and it'll be fine.
Okay, I'm gonna toot the horn. I'm sorry, I have to say this last thing then. I have to toot the horn of a friend of mine. He was a infantryman. All right, this guy was an infantryman, a National Guard infantryman, actually, and he did several years in that field. And if you know anything about the infantry guys, you know there's many, many jokes on them, and I'm not going to repeat them all right here, but you think they're not the smartest of guys. Well, this guy kind of proved the stereotype is a lie because there is nobody that is smarter, in my opinion, when it comes to IT now. He decided that when he was getting out, he was going to do something in IT. He started doing it, and it's been about 6, 7 years, and that guy is genius level with the stuff. The guy is amazing. He used some of his educational opportunities that he didn't really even believe he had, and he went after it. And he's going after it now to finish up. But he's already been working in the field for years and is doing amazing. So, tooting a horn for a friend.
And then there's another thing I'm going to just tease right here. There's an issue sometimes that happens with military because some of your experience and your skills are classified. And so when you get out into the civilian world, it can be difficult to be able to get jobs using those things because they're classified. And there are states that are looking into different ways of making credentials that will cover the classified s- concepts without um, putting in jeopardy that classified training and skill sets. It's a little complicated, but I've got someone who's going to be coming on to the podcast to better explain it soon. So that's something to look forward to. So here's the thing I want to throw out as we're wrapping up. I'm really grateful for Sergeant Dad, my wonderful husband, coming and joining us today and just being a part of this. But for all of you who are considering joining the military and maybe are already in the military or out of the military, what do you think of the GI Bills? Would you prefer the Montgomery or the 9/11? Which ones have you used? How have they benefited you? And what questions do you have? Throw them in the comment section down below. Let's get a conversation started. Let's share this experience and our knowledge and our skills that we've got so that we can help each other out. If you have dependents who've used it, what was their experience like? How did it go for them? Let's talk it out in the comment section below. And thank you all for your support and encouragement. I am so grateful for the wonderful community we are building with this podcast and the help and encouragement we are able to get. So share this out with anybody you know who might need this information. And remember to like, comment, subscribe. Let's click it and stick it to the algorithm. I cannot do this without you. So thank you for being the good that you want to see in the world. Let's keep that up. As always, I'm your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife.
Spouses